Welcome to Spartan Up Podcast here in the Amy Barn in Pittsfield, Vermont. Behind the camera, we have Marion, who I'm going to acknowledge first and foremost. We have Chris Irving, who is joining us from Spartan HQ. We have Sephra beside him. We have Colonel Nye beside her. And I'm Johnny Wade, as always. This week, we have Vanessa O'Brien. Vanessa is most famous for having completed the Explorers Grand Slam. You're going to find out what that is, but more importantly, you're going to find out how she can show you how to apply what she's learned in extreme adventure to day-to-day life. She's also been very successful in the corporate world, and we're going to find out all about that.
We are here for Spartan Up Podcast in New York City with Vanessa O'Brien, who was the first ever to set the speed record, top 7 summits and 2 poles.
That's right.
And what year did you do that?
That was 2012, 2013.
2012.
So it crossed over a calendar year.
So you were like a teenager.
Oh, well. 40's the new 30, that
Wow.
kind of thing.
What got you to do that? Like how?
Well, so I was in a period of transition. It was the global recession, and I was looking for a challenge. And at the time, I couldn't find anything harder to do than Everest. So I took that on. And
You needed something hard.
I needed something hard. And
The
Everest
financial
for me,
meltdown of the world ending wasn't enough.
Well, it was enough, but I just stopped climbing corporate ladders and decided to literally climb. And when Everest came into my realm of imagination, I took it on and decided, I may not know this, but I can learn this. And that's what I did. I took a mountaineering course in New Zealand. I was living in Hong Kong at the time, and I didn't think I'd succeed, actually, but I put all my determination, energy, enthusiasm into the task, and
Got it done.
got it done.
So go back in time. Like, where does a person with that kind of energy and determination come from? Where did you grow up?
Ooh, do you have a pendulum and a couch that we can take this forward? No, it's some of it will stem from childhood. How you're raised. I think parents' expectations. But a lot of it stemmed from a corporate background. So I had the opportunity to work for GE and Jack Welch. And, he was one of the great business leaders of our time. Many, many books, more than I could ever write or opine about. But he had 3 principles, and that was speed, simplicity, and self-confidence. So those were the 3 principles I took really to the mountains with me. And I think they all apply. Speed is really a key thing about the mountains. You don't want to spend a lot of time once you start the ascent. Right. Simplicity, you want to take the least amount that you can with you, keep it simple. I don't have to say stupid after that. And then, self-confidence, you need to really believe in yourself, especially when times get tough. You've got 40 below, temperatures, 40-mile-an-hour winds. You really need to not let your mind win over that mental willpower and keep going.
Don't feel sorry for yourself. But so when he had these 3 principles, did they apply not just to people, but to the business in general?
They apply to the business for sure, but I think they easily apply to any sort of adventure sports, any sort of expeditions.
Or anything you want to be successful
anything.
at.
Yeah, they're
Right?
really key for success in general. So I found it very easy to take the business skills and apply them to any sort of expeditions.
And where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Grosse Pointe Farms, Michigan.
On a farm.
Well, it's there's 5 Grosse Pointes, so and Grosse Pointe was one of the automobile neighborhoods of the time. Detroit, of course, now is not what it used to be, but once upon a time it was Motown, and then it became Motor City. But today it was, kind of known for almost a Harvard Business Review case study of a city that failed because of corruption at a political level.
And so, what perfect childhood, Leave It to Beaver kind of household? Like I'm just trying to dig in because there's people out there that are watching and saying, how do I get to the level she got to?
Yeah.
Right?
Actually, no. Funny enough. I would say perfect childhood, I want to say National Lampoon's like European Vacation, but, it was brother, sister, mom, dad kind of thing, immigrants, who came from Europe. But there was tragedy. And that tragedy was the death of my brother when we were, sort of 14, 15. He was 1 year younger, and he was in a boating accident. And when things happen, when tragedies happen to families, and say a son dies, or the natural order of things don't happen, where the grandparents die before the parents and the children, it tends to be a disruptor. And in a case like that, what happened is that my parents divorced immediately because they couldn't cope with the tragedy. And so I was left pretty much alone in the house with the parents divorcing, not wanting to be in the family home, which reminded them of the death. And so I grew up really alone and developing a sense of community with my friends who became my nuclear family. So it was not a normal, by society standards, upbringing. It's only normal to me.
And do you think that whole experience helped push you forward in business? Clearly you did very well in business.
Yeah, I think it's funny, it gives you a chance to determine early on who you are or who you are going to be, but also to experiment. So I had just as much of an opportunity to maybe go the wrong way, to mess things up, to not take responsibility. But I was forced maybe early on to realize that there wasn't a safety net, and that the safety net I would have to develop would be really all the skills and experience and knowledge I would acquire. And those were things that people couldn't take away from me. And that became kind of an important aspect that I learned over time. And what I really like people to take away from is when you go from a banker to a mountaineer, let's say 25 years in banking, and you do something radical. Say I couldn't find anything harder to do, which some people take as sort of a flip response. But the reality is that I knew, with all the experience, knowledge, and skills that I had banked, pardon the pun, that I could always go back. I could always go back after the recession had ended. And all I encourage people to do is take a look inward if they're not happy with where they are, in their job, in their experience, where they live, with the partner that they have, anything. Take that risk, because you can always go back. Nobody can take those things away from you. And it's such a powerful message. Because in an uncertain economy and with uncertain things that we find ourselves in, people have, if they look inward, they have more self-confidence that they channel that, and they could find a lot more happiness.
And do you think people end up just staying the easy course?
Of course, because it's the path of least resistance.
Comfortable.
It's comfortable. There's no risk there. Yeah. But they could find so much more happiness if they would just take that one step forward. And that's what mountaineering taught me, was take that one step. Not only will you get to the summit, but all new possibilities open up for you.
We're going to take a 2-minute break. Why don't you and I scale the side of the building, do a little mountaineering, and then we'll come back. And then we'll come back to this. Right.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I hope you're not sitting still while you listen. If you are, you better get a burpee break in.
All right, Suffer, who do we have next week?
We have Joe Polish. It's a great interview. I mean, the guy, he started out marketing carpet cleaners, deals with addiction, goes through this really eloquent story, and basically ends up putting together something called the Genius Network, which is really brought together a lot of the market transformers in that industry. It's an awesome interview.
Well, I can't wait to hear it. So, yeah. And if you don't want to miss it, subscribe on either iTunes or YouTube or wherever else you can find us.
All right, that was a hell of a climb. Thanks for that. So let's go back to safety net. Let's go back to this idea that most people are just extremely comfortable in their lives, maybe not happy, but comfortable, and they don't want to push outside that comfort zone, right? And so how do we get people to do that?
Well, I think people, first of all, have to assess where they are in life. Happiness is an interesting thing. First of all, one should never give the keys to happiness and put them in someone else's pocket.
Explain that.
What I mean by that is happiness belongs to oneself. You can't find happiness through someone else.
Right.
And a lot of people will often say, so-and-so's pissed me off, or, I'm disappointed because of so-and-so or something, or, that's a reaction to something or someone.
Right.
And you have to remember what you can control and what you can't control. You cannot control someone else. You can only control how you react to someone else.
Or something.
Or something.
Right.
So first of all, what's within your control and what's not within your control.
Right.
Don't wind yourself up on things that aren't in your control. It's like mountaineering.
Right. There's a blizzard all of a sudden. Nothing you can do.
If there's an avalanche, a blizzard, acts of God,
Financial meltdown.
Yeah, exactly. Those are out of our control.
Right.
To wind yourself up over them is so self-defeating because it's not in your control.
But if you're doing something, that is called.
Right.
So give an example there.
Okay, so, your reaction to it, your game plan. So in the financial recession, I said, okay, the best thing for me right now, because I'm a growth person, is not to be in financial services.
Right.
Because I build businesses, I'm not a business as usual person.
Sure.
Let me take a step out. Let's wait 2 to 3 years. Let's think of something goal-oriented. Let's think of something non-financial, something I could measure success. And let me find something that fits those parameters. So I build my own little mini plan around that.
Yep.
It just happens when the Everest word hit, it hit all those parameters. Right?
Right.
So in the case of happiness, if somebody's not making you happy, or you're hating your commute, or you're hating your job, it's taking a step back and saying, okay, where else would I rather be? What else would I rather be doing? And then how do I get from A to B?
And pivoting.
Yeah, because you can always go back.
Right.
Because those knowledge, skills, and experience are yours. You can always go back, and that's why people, if they take that step, they have a data point. I like it. I don't like it. Now I know what to do. If they never take that step, no data point.
Right.
So
then you're stuck where you are.
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is that there's less actual risk than people think.
Got it. Because they think their life is going to be completely disrupted.
Right.
Just go back
but
back home.
But they can go back.
Right. You can always go back.
You can always go back. You can go sideways. You can do all these other pivoting things. And people think, oh, no, I can't change. And people are afraid of change, but make change your friend. That's what the mountaineering has taught me. I would never have been in a Guinness World Record. I would never have achieved, the summits. And by the way, the summit is never the goal, as you learn. It's getting back down.
Sure. Yeah,
and
right.
it's about the
right.
journey and all these
right.
other things. But, you learn so much on an 8-week expedition, about yourselves and pushing boundaries and things like that. And, much more than you would accumulating a closet of clothing or, a brand new sofa or anything like that, where you would apply,
Sure.
your resources. So
the big takeaway is take the risk. It's not as big a risk as you think, and you could always go back. Let's apply that lesson you just spoke of to an actual experience.
Okay.
So you're telling the people out there, whether it's a mom, a monk, a business person, take the risk, get uncomfortable, because you could always go back. I would imagine that happened in mountaineering.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to know when to turn back, or you would never live to climb another day.
Right.
So
getting down is more important than getting to the top.
Yeah, and a great example is after these adventures, the eight summits, and then the 2 poles, I have been to K2 in Pakistan, which is the second highest mountain, for the last 2 years.
But more dangerous.
Much more dangerous, much more technical, and it's a beautiful country. Pakistan, it has the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th largest glaciers in the world out of the North and South Pole, and it has over 150 peaks, over 7,000 meters, that are the most highest and precipitous peaks in the world. So, they call it the Valley of the Mountain Gods. It's just fantastic. But K2 itself is a very hard, treacherous mountain. So the first year in 2015, we got up to Camp 2. It was an El Nino year. We had to turn back. Last year, we got
How hard is that to turn back?
Oh, it's so hard. You spend up to 8 weeks planning an expedition, a year of training. You organize an expedition. You go. You have, your heart set on something. But whether
you could taste it. It's right.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, it's climate change. El Nino is making the world warmer. So, the effect of a mountain is that you've got rocks that have been, clenched in snow and ice now launching like bullets at you, as you're climbing. And theoretically, that shouldn't be happening. The snow, your crampons no longer have purchase because the ice isn't there that should be there. So very hard to turn back. We go back another season. We get one campfire and a massive avalanche. Destroys all the tents, equipment, and supplies. So again, so hard to make that determination to turn back. But again, the mountain is always there.
You have to fight another day.
You can always go back. Is it painful? 2 years in a row? Of course it's painful. But at some point you have to realize if you continue, you take the risk of becoming a statistic. One of the 84 people, that have plaques to memorialize the death of the mountain and to become a casualty on that mountain. So
better to be a person than a plaque.
Correct. So I would rather climb at another time and reach the summit. So you got to be smart about it. Always these risk-adjusted things. When to turn back, when to, pivot, when to take.
But it goes right to your point, right? Take the risk, and you could always turn back.
You can always turn back, and it's always there. That's just another example of pivoting, knowing when you want to, kind of claim your glory, when to go, when to stay.
By the way, when it's all said and done, it makes it that much more fun that it took 3 times or 5 times or...
Yeah, and,
right?
and the sense of satisfaction that you had to put that much effort into it.
Makes it that much more
makes it that much more interesting. And of course, there's so many more stories that come out of each year. Success stories after success stories are quite boring. There's so many wonderful stories that come out of the aborted attempts.
That's right.
I never really tell the story in long form, but my first ever attempt at Everest was a failure, and then it became a huge success because every entrepreneur will tell you that you have to fail first.
Gotta fail. No, I'm a big believer that failure is actually the road to success.
Correct.
Right?
And if somebody told me, well, you have to fail first, I would have been like,
sounds ridiculous.
Right, there's the door, sod off, I don't want to listen to you. But when it happens to you, you understand why. Yeah. Because suddenly you're all ears, you're doing everything right, you're taking notes, and you're not going to get it wrong. And I could never have had...
sloppy.
You're not sloppy. And I could never have had the success I have if I didn't fail first. So also, if people do fail, don't freak out.
It's just a road.
You're normal.
Yeah.
It's okay. It means you're about to succeed.
I love it. You're awesome.
Cheers.
Notice she is not cold. I have a jacket on. See ya.
Thank you.
All right, well, I found that pretty interesting. That's a very interesting woman, and I really liked her philosophy. I don't know if it's hers or she borrowed it, but the 3 S's: the speed, simplicity, and self-confidence, and how that applied to mountain climbing, but obviously how it applied across the board. Whether you're in a boardroom, whether you're playing a sport or whatever, just how you can how you can apply those lessons to whatever you're doing. So I think that was a great takeaway. What do you think?
I think she's awesome. I mean, the Explorers Grand Slam. How many people have actually done that? Does anyone know?
How many women? I think sometimes we fall into a trap because we speak to so many incredible people doing so many incredible things. We start to take for granted what it is to climb a mountain. We take for granted what it is to go to the South Pole.
Yeah.
So the Explorers Grand Slam, it's getting to the
South
top
Pole
of
again.
all 7 summits, going to the North Pole and the South Pole. Most people, as in 99.999%, will never do any of those, let alone all of those.
Right.
The incredible thing about what she did is she did it as a speed thing, where she said, I'm going to set out to do this as one of the fastest people in the world who have ever completed this. And you just look at the logistics that go. I've climbed one of the 7 summits, not one of the hardest ones. And the logistics...
Is that Aconcagua?
That go into that. seemed like, the biggest thing I've ever done in my life. But then you stretch that across 7, most of which are more complex. The South Pole, one of the hardest places in the world to get to. The North Pole, which is as far from the South Pole as you can get.
Yes.
By definition.
Unless you're on the moon.
And doing it all quickly. Like that's, I just want to stop for a second and say that is unbelievable that somebody can do that. But the interesting thing too is this is somebody who's had success in other areas in life as well, and was quick to point out that a lot of those same skills transfer over. And so when we talk to people who are successful in sport, a lot of what made them successful in sport are the same things that would make us successful. As Joe says, whether you're a monk or a mom or a mechanic, it's the same stuff.
Grit, endurance, not giving up, going for it at all costs, dealing through adversity, all of those things.
Just checking them off.
Done, got it.
That just sounds
keep going.
that just sounds like a bull charging through a wall. That doesn't include.
Don't you think you need to be like that sometimes?
You need to have
Maybe
you need to have energy that moves you forward, but you also need to have thought. Yep. And move forward smartly.
Maybe.
And save right, and save energy when you need to save energy, right? And so there's got to be knowledge and experience and intellect involved in all of that as well. It cannot just be, can I run through the wall or not? You got to figure out, can you run through the wall without getting hurt? Yep. That kind of thing. So I think she's got all of that.
I think, and I really respect and honor like her vision on that, but I think there's a lot of people in the endurance race, extreme sport world who don't really put a lot of thought. But I
look at the Agogi that you put on here, and or the one that you do in China and all over the place. And I think a really cool thing about that is it's actually trying to draw these athletes away from the testosterone-fueled, head-down, smash through everything. Right. Because if you're going to make it through 60 hours, and you're taking away from the race too, it's more into the experience. And so you guys are really focused on the mental side of things. So in terms of Agogi, how are you drawing that in?
Yeah. So I mean, just taking those principles that you talked about, and then showing that they can be applied towards everyday life. I think that's one of the biggest things with Agogi. It's not just go, go, go. It's not just, lifting heavy things or thoughtless. There's some tactical.
And you guys make them do some you make them do homework ahead of time. They have to come prepared. And you make them know their true north. And I don't know if we did
and they teach them skills.
Right, but I'm saying, I don't know if we did it on this one, but in past, we've done the obituaries where they've had to write what they want people to say about them if they died today, and then if they died at 85. So there's
I don't really like that.
Well, it's right, because it's designed to make you think about who you are,
make you uncomfortable,
and where you're going.
Comfortable being uncomfortable.
So that's where the intellectual part of Agogi or Agogi, either one,
whiskey go
is involved there.
The other thing that's interesting too, and it goes back to the expedition type event. I noticed in the ceremony at the end of the most recent Agogi, where there was a conversation about, did you notice the people around you? Did you see somebody around you struggling? Did you help them with their pack? And the idea that we're not all just trying to get there before the other person, but actually having some situational awareness, making sure we're aware of what's going on around us, and help the people who need it. And I think about her with her 7 summits and the 2 expeditions, the North and South Pole. You need to have that. And again, in business, you need to have that. You need to be aware of, is somebody struggling, having a bad day, who's a part of your team? How do you address that and sort that out? And so this was one that, even though obviously her claim to fame and what had her on the podcast was this unique achievement, I was really struck by the fact that unique achievement wasn't actually unique in her life. It was parallel to other things in her life, and just was a different way of applying it.
When she talked specifically about that you don't want to die on your way to the top, right? Or you don't want to die on top, maybe. But I wonder about that. I mean, because to me that's metaphorical, and meaning we go out on top. So we can discuss whether it means physically on top of the mountain or on top of your mountain, whatever it is. But the idea is, she talked about failure and how important, and Joe has hit this a million times, how important failure is to building character in a person and building kind of your own platform there, right? No one wants to cheer for a guy who wins every single time. There's got to be the obstacles. There's got to be that friction. There's got to be, whether it's a movie or a sports show, you've got to overcome something.
Yeah, no one likes Tom Brady.
Interesting too, though, how she's playing on a level where there are different kinds of failure. The idea about going out and trying to climb a mountain and having to turn around is one kind of failure. Going out and the ultimate failure, you have to realize where to draw the line. And, that's something that's been interesting watching the evolution of Joe on this show where, at the start, I really do think that he was all about go, 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 no matter what. He talked to so many people, and so often it came up about how important it is to pivot, not to give up, not to quit, but to sometimes say, today is not the day we're going to make the summit push. We're going to do something different. We're going to come at it from a different angle. And so listening to her and talking about failure, and while you have to learn from your small failures along the way, you also have to know where it's not worth the ultimate failure. You're only going to get one crack at it if you do it wrong.
I think one of the, to go back to a design principle called permaculture, one of the basic tenets of it is something that they call PATO, P-A-T-O. It means protracted and thoughtful observation, right? So before you build on any lot, before you build anything, before you go climb a mountain, it's like, why don't you sit there and observe like what the pathways are, what the restrictions are, what your obstacles are, what your resources are, and actually make a good plan. And I think that has a lot to do with her strategy and like.
So there is an intellectual component.
I hope.
I do.
One can only hope. And you know what? Well, you know what else I was thinking? This is kind of a tangent, shocker. But it'd be so cool is if we had like somehow a Spartan Up podcast map that showed all the routes of all the expeditions and all the places, all the people that we've had on the podcast too. If anyone out there is an artist and you guys want to put it together and submit it to us, we'll feature it on our illustrious website.
You know who could whip that up in 20 minutes is Peter Borden. I don't know if you know Peter, but he's
Brigadier. Yeah, he's got nothing else to do. Slapping.
Hey, if you want to find out more about these podcasts, see some of the places people have gone, see the incredible artwork Peter's going to do for us to show the map that draws that all together. Kidding. Go to Spartan.com/podcast. Make sure you see all of our episodes by subscribing. Whether you listen on iTunes or watch on YouTube, hit subscribe. That makes sure we let you know about it. You can let other people know about it. Share it with your friends. Join us in our mission. We're going to rip millions of people off the couch, get them exploring this world and making a positive difference.
Thank you for watching another epic story of success. If you like our message, please share Spartan Up with your friends and subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you catch our show, maybe in the woods. Spartan Up is brought to you by Spartan Race. To find a race near you, visit Spartan.com.